What is the spring or vernal equinox and why does it matter? Well, Dagdi Vogus Fulcha. Hi, hello, and welcome. John O'Sullivan from Pagan Life Rights Ireland here. There's a lot of significance around a number of different times of years or celestial turning points around the years that are acknowledged in all forms of paganism or many other spiritualities around the world. And so it's worth understanding what is actually being observed and how that informs ourself and our senses and where we are in the world. So the spring equinox, also known as the vernal equinox, is the time of year where the sun appears to rise directly east. And so this means that our globe, our planet, which normally has a bit of an axial tilt for how it rotates around our sun, it means that there are 2 points in our orbit of the sun where we are perceived to be directly upright relative to the plane of the sun's light hitting our world. And this means that it looks like the sun directly rises in compass point east and sets directly west. Now, we know that this goes right the way back. Some of the earliest human cultures and societies were observing and acknowledging it rose directly in the east, and that's where the predominant belief is, that sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Now, it does shift, and it is different from the northern hemisphere above the equator and the southern hemisphere below the equator. But spring equinox, we can observe it. It's been a celestial event that has always been happening since we were consciously able to recognize it and to put that down together. This means that places in the Irish landscape like Newgrange is an example of the winter shortest day of the year. But there are many other places on the island of Ireland where our ancestors used the knowledge of solar rotation, used the knowledge of where the sun is coming up and going down to invest in their spiritual architecture in that way. So how do we make the jump from an observed experience into spiritual relation, and why does it even matter? Well, the equinox is where our planet appears to have an equal set of day and night. The length of the night is the same as the length of the day. At the spring equinox, it is the extending growth of the daylight. And from this moment onwards, we will see, as we say in Ireland, a grand stretch in the evenings as the daylight becomes longer than the nighttime. Now, of course, the invert is true when we get to later on in the year, but I'm sure we'll have a different video on that at the time. So this is a time where, culturally speaking, our ancestors in Ireland knew that there was going to be a time of great growth, great warmth, longer days, more daylight, and that meant there was more activity in tribal Ireland or even agricultural Ireland, which sets a lot of the spiritual beliefs and structures around things. But let's not ignore the change itself. And this is what's called a liminal space or a liminal time. And it is a time or a space that is in between two recognizable differences. And many spiritual practices all around the world have acknowledged the importance of liminality. Instead of just constantly going forward or constantly looking back, it's a moment of stopping in space, stopping in that place in between two things and allowing for that to be a place or to be a time. And the significance of that is core in many spiritual practices, psychological practices, journeying works, or even magical practices. Being caught between the two opposing powers of longer day and longer night. But at the moment, when we hit this spring equinox, with the oldest of sundials will line up directly with the sun rising from the east, and that would show a full 12 hours of daylight and a full 12 hours of nighttime. So spiritually, there's a lot of significance about it. As I said, the spring equinox kind of marks another big turning point, another kind of notable point. In Ireland, it really starts with Imbolc, which is the beginning of the spring season. But the spring equinox is when things begin to really, really ramp up, because from here it is going to be longer, more energy, more warmth, more daylight. And that is where all of the plans we put in, all of the seeds we've laid down at Imbolc, all of our preparations, our spiritual investment begins to ramp up with that energy from here as things begin to get warmer and brighter. So if you are practicing spirituality, if you're following along in any way, it doesn't have to be Irish paganism or any other form of paganism. It is your spiritual practice and belief, acknowledging the equinox, the spring equinox, as a time maybe to stop and take a breath when there is this balance between night and day, to then look specifically at what you have prepared for from in bulk, and then ask yourself solidly, what am I going to do with the energy that falls from here? So after we move into the equinox, it is all ramping up. It is all extra sunlight, extra brightness, extra warmth. So what are you growing here? What are you investing in? So by the time we hit Bealtaine, we're definitely on track. And by the time we run towards Lunasa, we are harvesting in exactly what we are due from the efforts we put in now. So, as I said, thank you. This is my take on the spring equinox. There's a lot of different and fascinating things to do about it. I would recommend that you, of course, look into it yourself and maybe ask yourself those questions like, what am I doing in this moment of liminality and balance? And then what am I using the energy that comes from here to create for myself after this time? So if you are watching this, you're obviously on the Pagan Life Rights YouTube channel. Please do the like and subscribe thing. We're going to try and provide more content and just more connection with the pagan clergy here in Ireland for those who are in need of services and life rights. Make sure you're on the mailing list. We have monthly get-togethers, monthly online moods, as well as in-person moods. It's a great way to be part of pagan community in Ireland. So until next time, I will say from my home to you, Sláinte, which is for your health, and goodbye.